The smell of fresh coffee and warm bread filled the air at Sabor de Vida, a small restaurant in New York that has always stood out for its welcoming atmosphere. The place was modestly decorated, with dark wood tables and red and white checked tablecloths reminiscent of old Italian cantinas. Jake, a middle-aged waiter with a smile always on my face, felt at home there. Every customer who walked in brought a story with them, and I loved hearing them as I served their orders. That afternoon, as I balanced a plate of spaghetti in one hand and a tray of desserts in the other, I noticed something different. A young woman entered the restaurant, hesitantly, as if the simple act of walking through the door was a challenge. She was about 12 years old, wore worn clothes, and her eyes, although bright, carried a sadness that did not go unnoticed. With an anxious look, she approached the counter, but seemed invisible to the other customers, who were more occupied with their conversations and laughter. "Please, could you help me?" His voice was soft, almost a whisper, but I could hear it. The attendant, a young woman who barely looked at the girl, just shook her head, ignoring her request. The heart squeezed inside me. How could someone be so insensitive? "Hey, how's it going?" I asked, approaching the girl. "What is your name?" "Lily," she replied, looking down, as if the ground might offer some answer. "Lily, what a beautiful name. Are you hungry?" She nodded, and I could see the vulnerability on her face. "What would you like to eat?" "Anything. I'm just really hungry," she murmured, her voice breaking. I looked around. Customers were busy with their meals, and the attendant, absorbed in her cell phone, didn't seem to care. I knew I needed to do something. The restaurant has always been a place of joy and sharing. Music was playing softly in the background, and an idea popped into my mind. "How about a deal?" I suggested, with an encouraging smile. "If you sing me a song, I can offer you a meal. What do you think? Music brings joy and can light up this place." Lily looked at me, a mix of surprise and hesitation. "Sing? But I don't know if I'm good enough." "Don't worry about that. Just sing from your heart." "I promise I'll listen," I said, trying to convey confidence. Her eyes started to shine a little brighter, and I realized there was a spark of hope there. "Okay," she replied, still a little unsure, but already with a slight smile on her lips. As I went to prepare the meal, a feeling of anticipation grew inside me. Little did I know that that small exchange would be the start of something much bigger. More and more, the idea of giving that girl an opportunity seemed not only right, but necessary. The restaurant needed a new energy, and perhaps Lily's music could bring it. As I served a plate of noodles to the customer at the next table, I couldn't help but look at Lily, who was now more confident, taking a deep breath and getting ready to sing. The environment was about to change, and I was eager to see what would happen. Kindness and music have always been able to heal wounds, and I hoped that in that little restaurant, we could find a little hope in the midst of difficulty. The atmosphere of Sabor de Vida was permeated by a mix of delicious aromas and the soft melody of a piano in the background. Jake, was about to experience one of the most exciting moments of my career as a waiter. Little Lily, with her hopeful and vulnerable look, was about to transform that welcoming space into a stage of dreams. "Can I?" she asked hesitantly as she looked around, as if gauging the customers' reactions. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper, but there was an underlying strength there, something that made me believe she was about to show something special. "Of course, Lily. Go ahead. We're all ready to hear from you," I encouraged, with a smile that I hope conveyed the trust one felt for her. As she got into position, a slight tension took over the restaurant. Customers began to stop their conversations and their attention turned to that girl who seemed to carry the weight of the world, but who was about to release something extraordinary. She took a deep breath and started to sing. The song that emerged from his throat was a melody that spoke about hope, overcoming, and the fight for a better future. His voice, although shy at first, gained strength with each note, and the sincerity in his words made many moved. I applauded, feeling my heart warm as I watched the transformation of these ordinary people into a captivated audience. "Wow, you really are amazing," I joked, applauding enthusiastically when she finished. But before we could savor that magical moment, the restaurant door opened with a bang, and Mr. Sullivan, the restaurant's chef, entered. His sharp gaze swept the room, and I felt a chill run down my spine as his eyes fell on me and then Lily. "Jake, what is happening here?" he demanded, his voice deep and cutting. "You can't just let this child sing in the middle of the service. What were you thinking?" "I just thought she might bring some joy, sir," I replied, trying to remain calm. I knew Sullivan wasn't exactly known for his empathy. He approached, his gaze becoming more and more threatening. "Happiness? This is a restaurant, not a talent show. You know you can't give opportunities to unwanted people like that. If you don't stop this, I'm going to have to take drastic action, Jake." The way he pronounced drastic made my heart skip a beat. "But she needs help and music is what she loves," I defended, engaging in a speech that, at this point, already seemed futile given its coldness. "She has talent, sir. Did you see how involved everyone was?" "Talent? That doesn't pay the restaurant bills," he snapped, dismissive, and I felt a flame of anger ignite inside me. How could he be so insensitive? It wasn't just about the restaurant, it was about giving a chance to someone who really needed it. "I can't just ignore this, Sullivan. Lily deserves a chance," I said, feeling determination rise in my chest. He looked at me with a mixture of anger and contempt. "If you continue to engage with this unwanted person, I will not hesitate to fire you. Think about it, Jake. Do you really want to risk your job for a kid who will probably never get anywhere?" His words resonated in my mind. The pressure was immense, but I couldn't let go of the hope that had been kindled in Lily and me. "I can't give her up, Sullivan," I replied, voice firm. "She is more than that. And I will help you, even if it means losing my job." Sullivan gave me a look of contempt, but I knew that at that moment I couldn't back down. I had to stand my ground. Kindness and hope were more valuable than any job. And even though the road ahead was difficult, I was determined to make a difference in Lily's life, no matter what it took. In the following days, the atmosphere at Sabor de Vida transformed. Every time Lily entered the restaurant, a wave of anticipation and joy spread among the customers. She became a little ray of sunshine, and I, Jake, was lucky enough to be the waiter serving her. With each meal I offered in exchange for a song, the girl's confidence grew, and the songs she sang filled the space with vibrant energy. One afternoon, while the tables were full and the aroma of hot dishes wafted through the air, Lily took to the small makeshift stage in the corner of the restaurant. Her once shy gaze now shone with determination. I watched her, my heart full of hope. "Ready, Lily?" I asked, as she adjusted the microphone. "I'm Jake. I will do my best," he replied, smiling shyly. And when the first notes of the song began to leave his mouth, the world around us seemed to stop. His voice was sweet and powerful at the same time, full of emotion. People stopped their conversations, and silence took over the restaurant. Even the most skeptical were captured by the beauty of that song. I applauded enthusiastically, and I noticed that tears were streaming down the faces of some people in the audience. After the performance, Lily walked off the stage with a sparkle in her eyes. "Did you like it, Jake?" she asked, anxiously. "You were amazing. Every time you sing, you become even better. Your talent is extraordinary, Lily." I encouraged her, feeling a surge of pride. But as the weeks went by, I felt like there was more to her story. One day, while serving a table in the back of the restaurant, I decided to approach and ask more about his life. "Lily, do you mind telling me a little about yourself? What is life like outside the restaurant?" She hesitated, looking at the floor before answering. "I live in a shelter with my mother. She is sick and cannot work. I try to help as much as I can, but sometimes it's difficult." "You are very brave, you know that? This isn't easy for a girl your age," I said, trying to convey support. She looked up, and I could see the maturity she carried, far beyond her 12 years. "I just want to help my mother. When I'm singing, I can forget about the difficulties a little." "I understand," I replied, touched by her sincerity. "And do you have a dream, Lily? Something you would like to accomplish?" "Yes," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I dream of being a singer, but I don't know how to make that happen. I don't have money for lessons or recording, and sometimes I feel like with all this, it's a distant dream." Those words hit me like a blow. I saw a girl full of hope, but also surrounded by uncertainty and challenges. Look, I promise I will help you find a way. You have an incredible talent, and the world needs to hear your voice, I said, feeling a determination rise within me. She smiled, but there was still a glimmer of doubt in her eyes. Do you really think I can do this? For sure. I believe in you, and I see how much you have achieved just by singing here. Don't give up on your dream, Lily. We will work together to make it a reality, I assured, feeling that, somehow, this was what I was supposed to do. At that moment, a connection formed between us. I was more than a waiter, I was someone willing to help transform that girl's life. Hope was dawning in our hearts, and I knew that together we could face any challenge that lay ahead. The night was calm, but I felt the tension in the air like a thread about to snap. The Sabor de Vida restaurant was bright. The tables were arranged carefully and the smell of homemade food wafted, but everything seemed gloomy. Lily was about to perform again, and I knew her enthusiasm might be overshadowed by Mr. Sullivan's presence. He didn't like what was happening. That glow Lily brought to the restaurant was a threat to him, a threat he was willing to eliminate. While setting up the tables, I noticed Sullivan approaching my station. His gaze was like a storm about to break. He crossed his arms, his expression was one of disdain. "Jake," he began, with a tone of voice that made it clear there was no room for debate. "You need to stop this. That girl is not welcome here. And if you continue to give her opportunities, you will find yourself out of a job. She's just here to sing. You can't forbid her from expressing herself," I replied, trying to remain calm. "Her music brought joy to the place. People are enjoying it." He laughed, a cold, sarcastic laugh. "Happiness? That's just an illusion, Jake. Do you really think the public cares? They're here to eat, not to hear a little girl sing. You are using the restaurant as a stage for a farce." I felt the heat of indignation rising within me. What if her music is what keeps them coming back? She needs this, Sullivan. And me too. We all need hope. "I hope you don't need a job," he replied before walking away, leaving a trail of discontent. I felt torn. The pressure to maintain my job and the responsibility I felt towards Lily weighed on me. But when I looked at the girl, who always arrived with a shy smile, I knew I couldn't leave her hanging. She was counting on me. That night, as the crowd gathered, I thought about how I could do something special for Lily. I remembered my own childhood when I dreamed of being an artist but never had the courage to pursue my dream. Lily had this sparkle in her eyes, and I couldn't let Sullivan take away that sparkle. So, I made a decision. "Lily, are you ready?" I asked when she arrived, her hair messy and an expression of anxiety mixed with excitement. "Jake, I'm so nervous," she admitted, biting her bottom lip. "You're going to rock it. Remember, people are here to listen to you, and you have an incredible voice. Just sing from the heart," I encouraged, trying to convey my confidence. She nodded, taking a deep breath. "Do you really think they'll like it? I know they will. You will touch their souls just as you touched mine. Come on, are you ready to shine?" The stage was set, and as Lily walked up, the audience began to murmur, anticipation thick in the air. I watched her with pride, feeling that even though the world was against us, in that moment, everything was right. But as the music began and her voice filled the space, a shadow approached. Sullivan was back, and his gaze was steady. He stepped forward, interrupting the performance with a stern expression. "What do you think you're doing, Jake? This isn't a talent show." Tension rose in the air, and the music stopped. Lily's anxious gaze turned to me, and I could see the concern on her face. But at that moment, I couldn't let myself be intimidated. "She's just singing, Sullivan. And people are liking it. You can't just interrupt like that," I replied, steeling myself. "I can and I will. This is a restaurant, not a circus," he shouted, and the room fell silent. Everyone's eyes turned to us, waiting for the fight to continue. "You don't understand, Sullivan. Her music is a light in the darkness. You can't erase what she means to so many people," I said, heart pounding in my chest. "If you don't stop this, Jake, you're going to find yourself on the street. And as for you, little girl," he turned to Lily, "don't come back here." Lily was frozen, but her gaze met mine, and I could feel her determination starting to grow. She didn't deserve this. "I won't let you silence us," she said, her voice firm, and the audience began to hum again, supporting her. Sullivan looked around, realizing his authority was being challenged. There was something powerful about that moment, something that I knew would change our lives forever. The restaurant was lit with golden softness, and the tables were filled with smiling, excited faces. Lily's performance had begun, and I could barely contain the excitement that was boiling inside me. I looked at the girl on stage, her presence lighting up the space. She was nervous, but that didn't stop her from singing with all her strength. Music filled the air and the audience seemed mesmerized, immersed in the sweet melody that rose from their souls. "You can do it, Lily. Show them what you're capable of," I whispered to myself as I watched her. Every note she sang seemed to bring more enthusiastic applause, and I felt proud, almost like a father watching his daughter shine for the first time. However, the joy was abruptly interrupted when Mr. Sullivan, the restaurant's chef, entered the room with a disdainful expression. His presence was like a dark cloud hanging over us. He walked onto the stage, interrupting the music with his authoritative tone. "This is a scam, Jake," Sullivan shouted, his voice cutting like a blade. "You are using my restaurant to promote a child with no future. It's completely out of control." The murmur from the audience began to grow, and I knew I had to defend Lily. I couldn't allow Sullivan to ruin that moment. With my heart racing, I stood up and faced the boss. "Mr. Sullivan, you don't understand," I began, anger rising in my chest. "Music is a form of hope. Lily needs opportunities, and this place could be the start of something wonderful for her." "Opportunities? For a street girl?" Sullivan scoffed, looking at the audience as if he was waiting for them to line up at his side. "You can't be serious, Jake. If you continue this, you are putting your job at risk." "What if I'm willing to take a risk?" I replied, feeling adrenaline rush through my veins. "This restaurant is more than just profit. It is a home for many, a place where people can meet and be inspired. Lily is one of those people. She deserves a chance." The audience began to applaud, the claps echoing like a collective cry of support. I looked at Lily and our eyes met. She looked a little scared, but there was a new light in her eyes. Her courage inspired me to keep going. "You can't just crush people's dreams because you don't believe they can achieve them," I continued, now more confident. "Her music brings hope, and we all need that, especially in difficult times." Sullivan was visibly angry, but the audience was undeterred. People began to stand up, and a wave of applause filled the air. I felt that the energy was changing, the tide was in our favor. "Lily, keep singing," I shouted, gesturing to her. The girl, understanding what was happening, took a deep breath and began to sing again, her voice stronger and more resolute than ever. The music flowed like a river, and the audience applauded fervently, each clap a reminder that kindness still had a place in the world. Sullivan, defeated, tried to regain control of the situation, but supportive voices filled the space, drowning out his words. He looked at me with hatred, but there was a new gleam of determination in Lily's eyes, and it gave me strength. "This is the true essence of our restaurant," I said, now calmer but firm. "It's a space where everyone is welcome, where music and hope can thrive. If you can't see that, maybe you're the one who shouldn't be here." Hearing the last notes of Lily's song, I knew I had already won. Regardless of what happened next, we had made a difference. Music, friendship, and courage had prevailed over Sullivan's fear and excessive ambition. And at that moment, I knew there was no going back. The change had begun. The atmosphere at Sabor de Vida was full of tension. The audience, which had previously been thrilled with Lily's performance, now fell into an uncomfortable silence. I felt my heart race as a customer, a man in a suit and tie, stood up from his table. He looked a little older, with gray hair on the sides, and his eyes sparkled with an intensity that intrigued me. He approached with firm steps, and the whole room watched him, including Sullivan, who was leaning against the wall, with an expression of contempt. "Excuse me," the man said, his voice ringing with authority. "My name is Victor, and I'm a music producer." I stood frozen, holding my breath, as everyone in the room waited anxiously for what he would say next. "Lily's music touched me deeply. She has an incredible gift," and I would like to offer her an opportunity." Applause began to roll out like a wave, filling the air with new energy. I looked at Lily, whose eyes were wide, reflecting a mix of surprise and hope. "Are you serious?" she asked, almost in a whisper, as if she feared this might all be a dream. "Yes, Lily," Victor replied with an encouraging smile. "I would like to record an album with you. Your story and talent deserve to be shared with the world." I couldn't contain the happiness that welled up inside me. I looked at Lily and saw her tears glistening in the soft light of the restaurant. She turned to me, and I gave her an encouraging smile. Sullivan, who until then had been silent, decided he wasn't going to stay in the background. He approached, his fists clenched. "That's a mistake," he snapped, his voice thick with anger. "This girl is not someone you should promote. She's just a kid and doesn't have what it takes to succeed." "You don't understand anything about music or people," Victor replied, without losing his composure. "What matters is talent, and Lily is full of it. You're just stuck in your own narrow vision of what an artist should be." The atmosphere in the restaurant changed radically. The employees, who had previously been subservient to Sullivan, were now banding together. "We're with you, Jake," one of the waitresses shouted, and soon several voices joined her, expressing support for Lily and me. Sullivan, isolated and furious, realized he had lost control of the situation. "You're going to regret this," Sullivan growled, but his voice no longer had the same strength. He looked around and saw that the restaurant staff had positioned themselves alongside us, ready to stand up for what was right. The atmosphere was filled with solidarity, and people began to stand up, applauding Lily and the new opportunity that lay before her. With a rush of emotion, I approached Lily and hugged her. "You did it, girl," I said, voice breaking. "This is your chance." She looked at me, her eyes shining with a fire I had never seen before. "Thank you, Jake," she said, her voice shaking. "I couldn't have done it without you." The team's support was decisive. Sullivan, realizing that his influence had waned, decided to withdraw from the restaurant, leaving his resentment and anger behind. The atmosphere was now drained of negativity and filled with hope. After Sullivan left, Victor looked at me and said, "Jake, you have a knack for supporting people. I'd like to discuss more about a collaborative future for you here at the restaurant, perhaps managing music events." Hearing this, I felt a rush of joy and accomplishment. "What do you mean?" I asked excitedly. "I want you to be the manager of Sabor de Vida," he explained. "With you in charge, we can make this place a stage for new talent, just like Lily." That news left me stunned, but at the same time, I couldn't hide the smile that was forming on my face. Lily, now beaming, began to imagine not only a bright future for herself, but also a new chapter for the restaurant. That night, as Lily and I talked about her plans and dreams, I realized that kindness and hope, even in the midst of adversity, would always find a way. And as I looked at the girl who had become a dear friend, I knew this was just the beginning of a new journey for her and for all of us.